there and welcome to DIY with Christine. Today I'm going over how I fixed a dent in our old metal front door using the Bondo Dent Repair Kit. As you can see, there was a huge dent in the bottom half of the door left behind by the previous owner. Instead of replacing the entire door for over $1,600, I decided to try and repair it for a fraction of that price. It was also something I've never done before, so I wanted to try my hand at a new DIY project. So, without further ado, let's dive into the project. The first thing I started with was wiping the door down with a wet rag and sanding the dented areas with 80 grit sandpaper until I was down to the bare metal. The Bondo Repair Kit that I used comes with the sandpaper and most of the tools you need to complete this project. I also included a list of all of the tools and materials I used in my blog article found in the description below. Now, this sanding was a little bit tedious, and this part could have definitely been done quicker if I had used a mechanical sander, but I wanted to get the feel of sanding the door before I used too much power on it. If I ever do this project again, I will probably use a mechanical sander to sand this initial part of the door. After I finished sanding all of the dented areas that needed repaired, I quickly wiped down the door and the surrounding area with a clean, wet microfiber rag and Dawn dish soap. There was dust and sanding residue all over the door frame, and the door sill, which needed to be fully removed so that the Bondo can stick to the metal on the door properly. It also prevents any of the dust on the surrounding areas from blowing into the Bondo while it's drying. Next came the slightly difficult part of mixing the Bondo body filler with the red cream hardener on a clean flat surface. I used the plastic yellow spreader tool that comes with the repair kit to mix the two creams together using a chopping and squishing motion. In theory, mixing these two items together should have been simple, but getting the ratios perfect turned out to be harder than I was expecting. When I did this project, I didn't have the exact Bondo Dent Repair Kit that I'm recommending you try out. I just had the separate pieces from an old kit that my dad had, so I was able to accomplish similar things. But if you get the kit that I'm recommending, that kit comes with packets that have exact measurements, so you don't have to worry about trying to get the ratio right. The key thing to remember when using Bondo is that it only has a working time of 3 to 5 minutes. I found that once I got a consistent pink color in the mixture, I needed to move quickly to spread it across the dent on the door. To spread the pink mixture on the door, I used the yellow spreader tool to swipe a thick layer of the mixture across the entire dented area. I attempted to spread the mixture a little farther beyond the dents so that later I could sand the hardened mixture down to flush so that it would be flush with the rest of the door. I found that if I could get the mixture spread across the area with only 1 to 2 swipes, I avoided having clumpy, uneven sections. As you can see, my application was not smooth or even at all, and I swiped across the area too many times, which ended up messing up the finish. I was really frustrated at the time, but it ended up not mattering that much after I did some sanding. All I could do after I had spread it on there and it was a clumpy mess was sit there and wait for the filler to harden, which took several hours. Later that night, I came back with my 80 grit sandpaper on my mechanical sander and went to town smoothing out the filler until it was almost flush with the surrounding area. It's hard to tell in this video, but I also went back in and finished sanding with 180 grit sandpaper until the filler was flush with the surrounding area. This extra step just helps get a slightly smoother finish. The hardened filler was easier to sand than I was expecting. It had a similar texture and firmness to hardened wood, which I really thought it would have felt more metal-like. The mechanical sander definitely made this process go by much quicker though, especially because I ended up fixing this filler coat a few different times. I wasn't really worried about the tiny imperfections left behind because I knew the red Bondo glazing and spot putty, oh, what a mouthful, would help fill in the remaining imperfections. Once the door was clean, I pulled out the red Bondo spot putty and squeezed a tiny amount onto the yellow spreader tool. This stuff is much smoother and lighter and much easier to work with than the pink body filler mixture. It doesn't harden as fast, so I didn't have to worry about working as fast. This red putty is extremely easy to sand and fills in any tiny scratches on the surface of the door that might be remaining. Just like the pink filler mixture, I tried to swipe the putty a little farther beyond the dented area so I could sand it flush later. Again, I tried to use as few swipes as possible, but as you can see, I swiped one too many times and slightly messed up the smooth finish. 'Tis the way of a perfectionist. Oh well, I was still able to sand it out smooth after it dried. Try not to beat yourself up if it doesn't turn out exactly perfect. I let the spot putty dry for several hours before coming back and sanding the putty with 320 grit sandpaper until it was flush with the surrounding area. If you use a mechanical sander like I did, then try to be gentle while sanding. The spot putty is so fine that it sands off pretty easily. Since I'm not a pro at this, I ended up having to apply a second coat of the red spot putty to fill in a few more tiny imperfections I missed. Again, I let that dry and came back several hours later with the 320 grit sandpaper to sand it smooth. To test for flushness, I like to use my entire hand to gently rub across the sanded area. If I feel any bumps or unevenness, I sand some more, and then I swipe my hand across again to feel for more unevenness. After a ton of sanding and time, I was finally satisfied with the smoothness of the repair, so I cleaned the entire area again with a wet microfiber rag. After the area was clean, the dent was finally repaired, and all I had left to do was prime and paint the door. The Bondo and exposed metal on the door must be covered with a coat of primer to help protect it and help the new paint adhere to the metal door properly. The priming and painting of the door was a huge project in itself though, so in my next video, I'll show you how we primed and painted our metal front door without removing it from its hinges. Here's the final results. After we primed and painted, you can't see any dent or imperfections left behind. The Bondo Dent Repair Kit made this repair super easy and saved us hundreds of dollars, and now our front door looks brand new again. Hopefully you can learn from my mistakes and make your dented metal front door look brand new again. Thanks for watching and happy DIYing!